So I got a couple of questions for you guys. First of all, I want to ask a couple of questions, and we'll pass it off to the audience. Have the audience ask you a couple of questions, and then after everybody's tired of us, we'll bring the family up to the stage. How's that sound? Okay, sounds good. So I wanted to ask you first of all, Tim. Is there another book?
Yeah, I just finished it. It's the Angie Bing book that I mentioned at the end of this film. Yeah, quite a surprise, but I like it. It has the virtue of being fiction, so I don't have to experience the realities of this film. It's all made up in my head.
Was it less of a tortuous process to get that one out?
Yeah, this book was fun.
Yeah.
Unlike the torture you just had to witness for an hour and a half here.
Aaron, how did this all come about? And tell us a little bit about the process of being embedded within a home and being part of that, because there's always I always sort of wonder about that. What's that like? Do you feel like you're in the way? How does that all work?
Well, I'll answer your first question first. I met Tim while working on another documentary I was doing for PBS about the military draft and the civilian-military divide, and Tim was one of many interviews we had, and his interview blew me away, and I was moved to tears and to laugh. And also during the interview, right to my left was a guillotine, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then he told me about how he had gotten kicked out of a casino one time for counting cards with his brother, that he had a young family that he was really involved with, and that he was working on a new book. And I just thought, this sounds like a good story. And I think I pestered Tim for about a year before he agreed to proceed on a, we'll see how this goes basis. And I was extremely lucky to be invited into the O'Brien home. As you can see, they're just like lovely, intelligent people. And I mean, I would say that if any of you have the opportunity to live with another family while you're raising your own family, do it, because you learn a lot. Just hanging around them, and especially if they're really smart and they make a lot of good decisions and have kids that are the ages of your kids. I feel extremely lucky to have had 4 years where I was basically invited into their home whenever I needed to kind of continue filming, and it was a gift for me, and I wanted to kind of give that to other people to let them see what life is like inside the home of a master writer. And one of the things I'm proud of with the film is that we have this idea of our artists being these towering geniuses who are like unencumbered by money and life and all that blah blah stuff. And Tim is very much encumbered, and we're also lucky that he's one of the few people who's able to kind of articulate what that's like. And I think it gives a rare glimpse into the writer's life,
Yeah, the credit card thing is harrowing, I have to say. And one question that the film brings up is, when you are creating something, you have to be creating it for someone. And I'm wondering, ultimately, it appeared certainly ultimately in this film that you're creating the book for your kids. Is it always necessary to have someone that you're creating for?
Well, for me, it's really ultimately to please myself. You hope you'll please others, but just through the experience of writing a bunch of books, that you can't and won't please half your readers, and you certainly can't please the trillion people who've never even heard of you or read your book, so they're unpleased. So you're left with a very slim population of pleased people when you're at the best. That's the good result. The bad result is nobody likes it, including me, which has happened once.
Well, we have some pretty pleased people here tonight, so I'd like to ask them for some of their questions. Who's got a great question for for our couple of creators here. We'll wait if no one does. I see a hand right here.
If my dad was smoking?
Have your sons ever told you to stop?
Oh, yeah. 10 million times. I tell them to stop doing stuff, and they don't do it either. So we're kind of even. If they'll quit video games, I'll quit smoking.
I think we can assume that you've gotten the message that smoking's bad for you at this point, probably.
I don't smoke that much. It's just Aaron kept it telling me to light cigarettes through the whole film.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so irresponsible of you to do that, Aaron. Why
I
would you do
smoke
that?
1 cigarette a day, and he made me like triple that. I sent him the doctor's bill. That doctor in the film, he charged us a couple thousand, and Aaron paid it. That whole thing was faked, you know. No, I'm kidding. I was really sick. One of the things that wasn't mentioned that was the hallucination. We mentioned the word hallucination, but what I was hallucinating was just really remarkable. A little bit of it appeared. But Timmy came home from a basketball game when he never practiced one of that. No, it was a game. I was, like you saw in the film, totally out of it. I mean, couldn't speak and couldn't even think, really. I was living in my head with weird stuff happening. And I had imagined that Timmy had placed an order for hamburgers at an auto body shop. You kind of heard that partly, but it was Timmy who I thought had done it. And I said, "Has your order come yet?" And he said, "What order?" And I said, "The food order." And he said, "I didn't order any food. I've been playing basketball. I just walked in the house." And I said, "Don't lie to me. You shouldn't lie to your dad." He said, "I'm not lying." He said, "Do I have to go get the food?" And I said, "No, that they're delivering." And that's when I mentioned this conveyor belt. He said, "There can't be conveyor belts from auto body shops to every house in Austin, Texas, delivering food. The whole city would be a web of conveyor belts." I said, "It's impossible." I got really pissed and said, "Don't contradict me." And Meredith, thank God, intervened and said she knew how crazy I'd gotten with this thing. That was just one of numerous hallucinations that were so vivid to me that there was more real than Aaron, who was there during this. He had set up this weird dolly in front of that couch where I was lying, and I woke up from one of these hallucinations with him dollying in on me. So which was weirder, Aaron with his dolly and his camera, or the conveyor belt? It was a strange time.
That does sounds like an immensely strange time, the hallucination included. I wonder if we have, yeah, see a hand right over here.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for being here and for everything you've given all of us. This film reminded me of an anecdote about Jorge Luis Borges when he was teaching at the University of Texas here in Austin in the early 70s. And the story goes that a student asked him whether he believed that the writer had a moral obligation to write about the political rather than the personal at a time when events like the Vietnam War were ongoing. Borges responded no, and the student replied, "But people are dying," to which he responded, "I'm dying too." I was curious how you would respond to a question like that and what you might think about Borges' response. Thank you.
I respond by my traditional waffling. I believe both are true simultaneously. Borges had a point that we're all dying, and that was one of the points I think Aaron tried to emphasize, that what is true for me as a writer and as a human being is true for you too. You just don't think about it or worry about it. We find all kinds of reasons not to imagine our own mortality. The cocktail party, the bridge game, the education, the work we got to go to, the movie we're going to watch tonight. Well, I mean, we make up millions of things that are like screen the obvious, because I think we have to. I think we have to screen the obvious from ourselves. We are not gophers, and we're not chipmunks, and we're not wolverines. We're humans, and we have this capacity to know and be conscious of our own mortality. Most animals, I think, are not. So I've read anyway. Any case, that's the Borges side of the answer. The other is I do feel an obligation. It's less and less as I get older to issue the caution: watch out for killing people for bad reasons. What are bad reasons? That's up to you to decide. But if they're bad, don't do it if you think they are. But I've gotten less and less evangelistic about it as I get older, because I've gotten less and less hopeful. You could kind of detect that in the film, that I just feel there's so little hope. We're always going to find reasons to kill one another. Hasn't stopped since, the time of the Iliad, and it's not going to stop tomorrow either. So I caution less. I love my children and my wife so much. That's the center of my life now, and I hate the thought of leaving it.
Did you feel like in the film there's a scare, where it seems like it could be the end? You refer to yourself as dying during that point. Did that change the way you related to the work, a work that was giving you so much trouble? Because it seems like, this may just be the structure of the film, that really picked up the pace after that, after you almost died.
It did. It picked up the pace of the writing a lot. I was wasting less time. I stopped traveling as much. Now I don't. I'm going to travel one time, thanks to this guy next to me. Aaron and I are going to my home state of Minnesota, to which I haven't been. We're going to a place called Fort Snelling, which isn't really any longer a military outpost, I hope. It's an old historic frontier fort that's essentially in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And that'll be the first actual money-making excursion I've made in a long time. So I'm impoverished, and there's a little dish outside here that you put your money in. No, I'm just...
Absolutely, anything that you can contribute, we really appreciate it. Yeah. I see a hand right over here.
Tim, this is going to be a little karma. A couple of decades ago, we were talking, and I said, they got this place. They got this place at the University of Texas called the Harry Ransom Center. You got to think about putting your papers there. And I don't know if you remember this, but you said, "Why the hell would I want to do anything with Texas?" we were in Cambridge, 1600 Massachusetts Ave.
Yeah, that's true.
Why would I want to do anything in Texas? That's a crazy place to go.
It's a bizarre place to find myself. I've got a love-hate relationship with Texas, minus the love part. It's
You're really winning the crowd right now.
It's watching Ann Rapp's film last night. There's a scene of a bus going near Wharton, Texas, I guess, down a highway. And it was the ugliest looking scene. I mean, Ann didn't do it. She just filmed the ugliness. Flat, boring, brown, parched, dry, and full of Texans. Which, the politics of this state and I have not gotten along for a while. I'm not evangelist. I can't wait to get the hell out of here. I don't know where to go that's better is the problem, because there's so much about Austin particularly that I like.
Yeah.
I really like lots of Austin stuff, like this place. But this place isn't in Wharton, or my hometown of Worthington, but I do love Austin. I wish you could transplant Austin, to someplace sane.
Maybe someplace cooler also would be nice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's. I think
I'm making a lot of enemies, as I usually do.
No. Everyone who lives in Austin, whether they'll say it or not,
Good.
feels that way.
Good.
I think
Good.
it's fair to say we have a love-hate relationship with the place that we exist. I see a hand right over here.
Tim, I have to say I admire your writing distraction technique of cleaning the floor. I think my wife wishes I would take that up. But, I mean, writing is fairly embedded with your house. But at the same time, Aaron, how did you approach writing something cinematic? Because it's pretty boring. We're just typing. There's nothing else doing. So how did you,
Yeah.
from the two sides of it, how did you?
Well, you've hit the nail right on that. This is what I warned Aaron about for a full year. I said, my life is so incredibly boring. It's going to the grocery store and sitting at a typewriter doing silent, going like that. And he said he would find drama. I submit he did, but he sure lucked out with me getting that sick. There was one scene that made me squirm tonight. That was, and Aaron, I think, knows which one it is, and my kids certainly know. It was the one where I just got so pissed off about the video game stuff and the constant playing of the video games that I had I wanted to ban screens from my house of all kinds, including television screens, computer screens, iPhone screens, iPad screens, and all the other fucking screens in our house. And the family rebelled, rightfully so. I guess I was a little absolutist and drastic in my draconian, but I was so sick of it. I wish still I had won that battle, though. I still regret losing that one. I could take losing the Vietnam War. That was preordained, but that one I thought I had hope.
You'll be dealing with the aftermath of that for a while, I think, picking up the pieces probably. So, Aaron, about what Richard was just asking there about what techniques you use to make it exciting.
Yeah, I was also very conscious from the beginning that a movie about a writer could be really boring, and I thought, like, okay, I'll never show him typing anything, and because that's the imagery you usually see, and it really is dull. But I had faith in Tim's honesty and how gripping candor can be. We don't hear it that much, and from that first interview I did with Tim, I was like, this is a guy who's so honest that people are going to want to pay attention to him. And he's also got this kinetic energy that you can see in the flick of a cigarette and the twinkle of his eye and the way he searches for the perfect verb. And I just thought that energy will carry the film. And one of the things that was cut out of the film was this motif that because we would have a lot of conversations. For me, it was such a privilege to, as someone who tells stories for a living, to be with a master storyteller and try to be hashing out the story I'm telling. And we would have these conversations. He would say, "Listen, if I don't die in your film, you don't have a film. There's no story here." So he came up with the plan that he was just going to, every once in a while, he said, okay, this is what we do. Every 20 minutes or so, you're going to point the camera at me, and there'll be a scene with me saying, there's no story here. This is boring. What are you doing? Why are you making this film? And we actually filmed a lot of scenes where Tim is kind of breaking the fourth wall and saying, all I do is sit in my underwear every day, and there's nothing here. But I think Tim and Tim's family, and the kind of intimacy that you feel is really kind of takes audiences in, and I just trusted in that.
There's almost always in a documentary, I've found from talking to documentary filmmakers, some kind of kill your darling sequence. Like there's a sequence that you just have to have in the film, but the film never comes together until you kind of abandon that sequence. Is there a great sequence that you had to leave on the cutting room floor on this one?
There were a few, and during the pandemic, I put a bunch of them up online on the Facebook page, which is at Tim O'Brien Film. And there were just like 15-second to 2-minute scenes that either didn't make the cut or that I wanted to eventually cut. Or, I mean, just a few weeks ago, actually, I took something, a section of Tim's interview, and put it over images of Ukraine, and it got a lot of traction on the internet. And it was an interview I did with him from 6 years ago. I did like 25 hours of interview with him. So there's so much stuff that I always just felt so enriched going back and looking at it and listening to it. So I feel like I could just keep making stuff from it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
There's a scene where Timmy tries to cut his father's head off in the guillotine, and I wanted to get that scene in the film, but that didn't make it either. Yeah.
The whole magic angle becomes this like incredibly sort of outre, crazy sidebar to the film that just gives it that little extra spice that right when it needs it, I think.
No, thanks for saying that. I mean, it was one of the surprising things for me, just how good he is at magic, and also how he connected magic and the magic of writing and creation.
Let's get another couple of questions from our audience before we bring up the real heroes of the film. I see a hand right over here.
Mr. O'Brien, thank you. The things I carried, I kind of used as a Bible to figure out how to reconnoiter myself and recalibrate after war. And I did 5 tours. I'm a wounded infantryman and trying to be a writer. One of the things that I always find really hard to reconcile is my relationship with other veterans. I feel like very much in connection with the way that you feel about war and killing people, and having done it and having been there, and then seeing guys that might have this blockage or something that we don't have, or maybe we're blocked. I don't know what the difference is, but I guess it's not a question. Just wanted to say that the joy is repeating, and there are still veterans that feel the same way you do, and I know that I feel very alone at times when I'm trying to say something that I believe is true, and sometimes that truth gets lost in the noise of the needing to be validated by the things that you did over there. And I just appreciate having seen you, and it's given me kind of a way to know that at least one person is still standing there and still believing in that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I want you to know how much that means to me, because I do sometimes, as Aaron knows from being with me, I feel lonely sometimes as a veteran. But I know there are people like you out in the world. It's just that I don't see them enough. But then I don't see anybody very much. I love my fellow soldiers that I served with in Vietnam dearly. But I also despise some of the things that they believe in. And that's the world we live in, that there are things about myself that I despise, smoking and cussing too much, and feeling, and in this film I look so much more passionate and angry and sick than I really am. And I didn't believe myself most of the time, because I don't feel that what you saw tonight is that's not my impression of myself, and I didn't like looking at it tonight. I don't know how I project that guy you saw on the screen tonight, because it doesn't feel like the real me, and I don't think I'm pretty laid back about the world, and I find humor in the world, and I laugh, and I love magic, and the scenes where I was silent doing the magic were my favorite in the film, because that felt the most like the person I really feel like I am. The presence of my kids, they're here tonight, and we want to bring them up on the stage, because I want to ask them questions, and I bet you would too, like, what's it like living with that monster, from growing up with him? But thank you for saying that. It means the world to me.
And on that note, why don't we bring up the family, the rest of the family, so that
Yeah.
we can ask them some questions
Bring
too.
them
Come
up.
on up, you guys.
I'm going to introduce my family to you. The first on the stage is my son, Timmy O'Brien, who's now, he's no longer Timmy. Now he calls himself Tim. He made the leap from the diminutive in more ways than one, as you've noticed. That guy is tall. I'm not sure I'm actually his father. Meredith will tell me later on. He's now going to be a sophomore at the University of Chicago. We're extremely proud of him. Yeah.
Come on over. Let's
Okay,
spread
next
everybody
on
out
the list
stage.
is Tad O'Brien. Actually, his first name is Trevor. He's also a little tall. Tad is, he's going to St. Andrews, and we hope he goes also. He just came back from the University of Chicago for a prospective student kind of trip, scope out the school. But this expensive education, he wants to be a professional gambler. And quite literally, this kid knows poker the way that, I kind of know writing. I'm really good at it. He's just as good at. He uses a language that I don't understand. And I had him read a series of emails between himself and a professional gambler, a poker player, who was in a tournament out in Las Vegas. And this 8,000 people had entered this tournament. This guy had survived, 4,000 or so or out. And Tad questioned one of this guy's moves in these arcane emails back and forth with this guy. And the guy admitted, yeah, you're right. I made the wrong move and so on. So this is my other son. Love them both dearly. They're a little bit alike and they're a little bit different, but I think they love each other a lot too. And Tad, when this film was made, you saw him when he was like that tall. I mean, he was just a little tiny kid. And Timmy was maybe that tall when this film started, a long time ago. And the creator of these two kids is Meredith O'Brien. She was and remains the stable thing in our family. It keeps our family a family, really. She's sane, she's rational, she's loving, and I'm so lucky to have, encountered her in my life and be married to her. So what we thought was we're interested in what you might want to ask these people who were around Aaron and me during the making of this film. So I'm going to ask first.
You guys, ask away. Let's get some good questions for the family here. All right, I want to ask, we'll get these questions in a minute. First of all, Meredith, what's your favorite part of the film?
When I was crossfitting. No, I'm just kidding. No, maybe. No. It's all about me. No. I think when the sheet goes down and Tad, he says, but Dad, but Mom. I really like that. I like that moment quite a lot.
Tad, what's your favorite part of the film?
I mean, I love it all, but probably when we were playing Scrabble, because this was the most fun part. When I said, is Zarf a word? I don't know. I really liked that part because
I questioned it. He made that little Scrabble scene around the floor, and he wrote ZARF with these chips. I didn't know it was a word. I challenged it. He knew it was a word. He's 5 years old.
I mean,
so I lost all my challenge points, and he got them.
Yeah. On that note, though, you should never play Scrabble against this guy. It's almost impossible to play Scrabble against a writer and win.
How about you, little Tim?
My favorite parts were when my dad was talking about his dad, which I didn't expect because that was a part of the film that I hadn't really been exposed to. It was particularly insightful for me because just you would think seeing myself on the screen, I'd be like, well, this is my favorite part. But I had already done those things, so I had nothing to relate to. It was just interesting to see my dad kind of in my position. But I mean, obviously, it was way different. His dad and my dad are way different people, but for some reason, that was just the most emotional for me.
And have you two read the book?
Which book?
Not the newest book, but the one that's chronicled in the film.
We've read excerpts, but we haven't gone through it in its entirety yet.
They never will.
Not sure.
No, they will.
Yeah, you will. I can promise you will. Let's get to those. I saw a couple of hands back here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Tim was saying that when you watch this, you don't feel like that's your true self that you're seeing on the screen or how you see yourself. And I'm curious to know from your family, does it feel like an accurate depiction of your family?
I couldn't hear you.
She was asking if how you say it doesn't seem like yourself on screen. Do we feel like it's an accurate depiction of? I think it is actually. I really do. sometimes I'm like, why didn't I wear makeup? He was filming, like I never wear makeup, and I'm in exercise clothes all the time. But whatever. We're very honest. And also, I have to say, if you are going to have someone live with you for 5 years, this is the man. Yeah, I mean, I have so much love for him and so much respect. So we really were able to just be ourselves. And he added so much to our lives during those years.
Aaron, by the way, I've decided finally I'd like you to come live with me for 5 years.
Yeah, in a way, Aaron became kind of a brother to me in the course of this. We laugh at exactly the same things. We get angry at the same things. We get sad at the same things. And we cherish the same things. He loves his family as much as I love mine. And we talk about the love, how sometimes it can be blinding to the realities around us. And other times it's just the most wonderful thing. Where we vacationed together. We went to the Bahamas together as a family, his and mine. It was, I mean, it's been way beyond the film you saw. A great friendship was established. And the film, as much as I adore it and think it's important, is at least in the same power as our friendship.
And have you guys been going around doing screenings of this film?
No, because of COVID, we haven't.
So how many screenings have you done together?
Well, we've done a bunch online.
But in terms of in person, how many have you done?
No, this is the first
This is
first
the
time.
first one.
First one, yeah.
That's amazing.
It
This is
really
such a
is so
special night.
memorable. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to say it again. Thank you so much for being a part of this because it's really special. Yeah.
And on that note, I think I want to ask you one last question before we get out of here, Aaron, which is what are you working on next? And then Tim, I want to hear the same from you.
Okay. I'm working on 2 films right now. One is about an underground dance called whacking, which is a precursor to voguing.
Wait a minute. Can you say the name of that?
Sorry, yeah. We're going to have to deal with that somehow. But yeah, it's called whacking, WAACKING.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And in one sense, it's totally opposite to the movie here because it's this crazy dance. And then the other film I'm working on is very similar. It's about the composer, Michael Giacchino, who's directing his first film for Hollywood. And we're tracking him telling a story and struggling to do it.
So music for all the Pixar,
yeah.
number of Pixar films and stuff. Yeah.
And Thor, Batman, and Spider-Man. He's kind of a big composer, and he's doing what he's wanted to do all his life, which is make a movie. And he's been making movies his whole life. And so, yeah, that's what that film's about. So.
And tell us about your next 3 books, Tim.
Okay. What I want to say is Aaron, by the way, won the Academy Award for short documentaries this year. He hasn't bragged about that to you. We didn't do it, but wow. We're going to have an Oscar winner doing a thing about our family. It was pretty cool. He won it for a film about a woman called Colette, who was in the French Resistance movement, and about a young woman who had befriended her and took her to the place where her brother had died in a concentration camp. It's a remarkable, moving, and oddly sometimes even humorous film. It's sort of like Tonight. It's not all tragedy. There's humor with it. It's a remarkable film. This is the recipient of an Oscar. I've just finished a book, and I'm sure there'll be no more beyond it. I'm too old, but it's a cry of outrage, but I hope a funny one about the world of we're living in right now. It's called America Fantastica, and that should tell you kind of what it's about. There's a disease, a lying disease. It has the second word is fantastica. I can't remember the phenomenon. And there's another word called mythomania, which seems like a new contagion in this country's politics. It's called the lying through your teeth disease. And then the psychiatrists have big names for it. So it's about people who lie, a whole cast of characters, and everybody's lying to everybody else and betraying everybody else.
You'll
typical.
never run out of script for that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of that.
Yep.
Well,
Hey, I want to say thanks though for you, Lars, and for the society, and
And rap, let's not forget.
and Anne for.
Well, I want to say, let's have a great hand for Aaron Matthews and for the O'Briens. Thank you.